just waiting for you. Okay, so good morning. I am here, or good afternoon, depending on where you are. I am here with Ruth Ikegah, who is a back-end developer, technical writer, and GitHub star from Nigeria, and she has been our guest curator this past week on IMakeFOSS. So Ruth, it's great to have you here.
Thank you, Monica. Great to
So
be here.
very good. So I wanted to ask you, and it was great going over your website, which is at cakebaby.dev, which, oh
Yeah,
my gosh, it made me so happy to see it. And we will talk about cake at the end, I promise.
sure,
Yeah, but it was
sure.
so great to also see someone who is pretty new to the open source world. So, how long
Yeah.
have you been involved? And was there a specific spark that made you decide, hey, I want to get involved in this?
Okay. Yeah. So I've been involved. Like I said, around uh, June. Oh yeah, July 2020.
Mm-hmm.
So okay, before getting into tech, and that was like 3 months into tech, right, into coding. So before now, I have like had friends who do who code, who design, right?
Mm-hmm.
And while I was in college, like my friend would say, um, we'll talk about open source, and I'll be like, okay, what exactly is that? And she would say, okay, it's just like volunteering in tech, but in tech, right? So I was like, oh, that was something I would love to do because I do a lot of social volunteering,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I was like, okay, that's what I would love to actually get involved in. So 3 months into it, I was like, okay, let me try this out. But what actually brought the spark was a challenge by this the community open source community Africa in Africa. So there was this challenge for getting women involved in open source, and it was in the month of July, something like how Oktoberfest works.
Okay,
Like
got it.
yeah, yeah. So the same principle Oktoberfest, but this would be like just get a number, the highest amount of pull requests in the month of July. So I did that challenge, and I think I was the highest. I got the highest number of pull requests because I was all searching for during the month of July. I was all searching for open source projects. I was trying to understand how to contribute, and it was really frustrating because I barely knew my way around Git, and it was really a whole lot
Oh,
of
God, we've
stress.
all been there. We've all been there.
Yeah. So I think I have so many Git bad stories. I even have one of recent where even after like I think 5 months or 8 months into at least using Git, I just had a breakout. Like I was doing a demo on a talk,
Mm-hmm.
and I just I missed a step I didn't know about. Like I didn't know you can't commit empty directories or empty folders. So I didn't know about that. So I was trying to commit an empty folder during a demo, and it just kept failing, and I didn't know what was
Oh
wrong. And
no.
it was so embarrassing. Like it was very, very embarrassing. I didn't even know what to say. Like I was trying to okay, I was there to teach the attendees how to use Git, and their teachers was it was so frustrating. Like I didn't know what to do, but I think how I got through that. So I was like, okay, just hold on a sec. Let me try to fix this. And I
Mm-hmm.
went off first time. And I'm like, what was actually the problem? What was I tried to delete the whole file from my system, the whole clone file. It
Oh
wasn't working.
no.
I tried again, and I said, oh, I give up. Okay, so this is what happens. Everybody's not good with Git. I'm not good. Everybody has this. So I escaped from showing them, okay, you can actually commit files from GitHub, right? Instead
Mm-hmm.
of, you can use GitHub to directly commit instead of using the command line or Git CLI. So that's what saved me. So if there wasn't a way to commit on the cloud, I would have just totally messed up. But so yeah,
Oh my
so
goodness. And I think all of us have had those kind of get embarrassment moments.
yeah,
This, oh my gosh, I was doing something with
yeah,
our documentation team and my get
yeah.
cracking because I didn't realize that you really shouldn't use merges very much at all. And I had been abusing the merge button so much. And our web team lead is like, what is going on with your. And so I'm just like, but you know what? It was great. I'm like, okay, this is
Yeah.
embarrassing, but it lets the new documentation people know that it's a process
Mhm.
and everyone
Yeah,
messes up. And now I have a much
exactly.
cleaner kind of line and I don't abuse the merge button. But
Yeah,
I think that's so key to because we tend to think that the people who've been here that they have it all together
yeah.
and they never make a
Mistake.
mi- mistake. But I think then, especially during those live demos, we see people make
Yeah, exactly.
typos. Yeah, that's really awesome. And so I also, and so this makes me really happy that you're a tech writer. So what
Yeah.
kind of drew you to kind of that specific side of contributing to open source?
Okay, so as per tech writing or generally.
Either one. It's like, did tech writing come out of a general interest in writing, or?
Okay, so when I said contributing, right? So like I
Mm-hmm.
said, I was just like 3 months into coding, and I started with Python. So when
Mm-hmm.
I was looking for open source projects,
Mm-hmm.
the issues I saw were really very complex issues. I was like, how will I ever do this? Like the issues were so complex. So the ones I could find at the moment were documentation issues like readmes, enhancing the
Mm-hmm.
readme, looking at a typo, or just creating a document, right? So when I saw those ones, I was like, oh yeah, I can actually do this. And before tech, I did a lot of writing, editorial writing. So I said, okay, so that's how I carve that space out, documentation. And I think a large percent of my contribution to open source has been like documentation and
Mm-hmm.
organizing and speaking. That's not really been code contributions. I think I even
Which is
pointed it out.
fine. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I pointed it out about people on one of my tweets on the
Mm-hmm.
IMakeFOSS
That was a
about creating
great
issues
tweet.
with context. Yeah, like making issues with context, because
Mm-hmm.
for beginners it's usually very frustrating to like look at an issue and you can't really do something on it, or you're not seeing a first timers issue to like really do. So it's really very frustrating for beginners. So yeah, I know a large part of my beginner journey, especially with kids, was frustrating, trust me. But I really love the niche crafted out for myself, which is like speaking for beginners, and most of my talks are really centered across that, like how to make onboarding very scalable, and how to like
Yes.
enhance, yeah, make it more inclusive and
Yeah.
diverse, right? So
Can
I carved that niche for myself, and that's been really been it's really been great. Yeah,
Yeah, and as someone who, oh my gosh, onboarding is just so important and
yeah,
having scalable processes and so to
yeah,
manage and make your growth smart and sustainable. And
exactly.
it's definitely not a shock that you also contribute to the Chaos Project. That all sounds
Yes,
very familiar. And
yeah,
so, And so, what have you kind of learned about that whole kind of writing for the onboarding process?
Okay. So aside the chaos project, there's a very particular project I contribute to in Nome.
Mm-hmm.
It's called
Yeah.
Scalable Onboarding. It's led by Sri.
He's
Yeah.
awesome.
So yeah, he's really awesome. Trust me.
Yeah.
So yeah, that project is new. It's a new project. It's been going on for like a year,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that project helps to say, okay, how do we make onboarding scalable in Gnome, right? Because it was like if you get to the Gnome website, you it's really hard for a beginner to understand where to contribute or how to get your way around, especially with IRC. I think aside Git, I think another problem I have is with IRC. Like I always get lost.
Oh my God, yes.
I always get lost. Like I wonder, like I'll be like, how can they just leave this chat channel alone? Like, can't we just not use IRC? But over time, I got to understand how it works. So
Yeah,
at least I'm not scared anymore.
I think getting the right IRC program is key
Yeah.
because one of the best $5 I spend per month is for IRC Cloud
Oh,
because then it will keep me logged in and so I don't lose
okay.
messages. And that's really
That's nice.
handy because I think the first one I tried was HexChat and HexChat did not work for me. It
Oh,
was so
okay.
frustrating and I had the same thoughts as you. I'm like, why do I have to use the things that I
Hey,
used 20
I
years ago?
know.
But if there's people there, you have to be able to to meet them there too. So,
Yeah.
yeah, but I think the right program really does help though.
Yeah,
So,
I think for Gnome uses Matrix to bridge it. So
mhm.
I use Matrix. Yeah, so at least the messages stay back and
Yep.
helps me get in check. So yeah, so this project Scalable Onboarding just aims to say, okay, how do we make onboarding scalable? How do we include beginners in the process? So it's a new project and it's ongoing, and we are trying to like do a practical with the team, a new team. Let's see how we can grow this team and make it scalable and appreciated, like for beginners, inclusive for beginners, right? So that's one project I'm really, really very interested about since I carved the niche around beginners. And on the chaos project, and one project, the group I'm actually involved in is the diversity and inclusion group, which is one group that is really very active and welcoming. And
Yeah.
one great thing I'm really proud of that I have done in that group. Okay, there are two things actually.
Okay.
So there's yeah, so there's this metric I defined about burnout, right? It's still in process. So
That's
I defined a
so.
metric about burnout, like talking about burnout in open source communities and how it
Mhm.
affects us, maintainers and contributors. So that's a metric that's like still ongoing. And I even hope to post a tweet today about burnouts because I think it's one thing we do not really talk about in open source communities. Like that topic doesn't really come across because I think for the early part of this year, I've been experiencing some burnout, right? So I actually know how it feels to not to have all those feelings and feel tired, and you just look at the work and you can't actually do anything. You're just tired. And so this is something I would love to see people talk about in their communities and
Yeah.
you know support those that are experiencing burnout. Look out for contributors, don't not just contributors but maintainers, because it's a whole lot being a maintainer, like
Yeah.
okay, last year I was opportunity to be a mentor um in the open source day at Chris Hopper's conference. So one of my activities was merging pull requests for a Git tutorial, a Git workshop. So we had like over 500 participants, like 500 attendees. And imagine 500 attendees trying to send in one pull request. Like we had so many merge conflicts. we tried we
Yeah.
tried resolving each of them. So I had that opportunity to feel like a maintainer. So it's just to say that maintainers really go through a lot, like so much. You get, so everybody gets burned out some point on a project. So we should like look out for in our communities for maintainers, for contributors that have been doing so much work, and try to appreciate them and try to ask questions as regarding if they are tired or how they feel, and get so much metric around that. So
Yeah.
I think that's like one project I'm really very like very a metric I'm really very excited about in the chaos group. Then secondly, there's this project. It's also new.
Mhm.
It's called the Badging Project. So
Oh yeah, I've heard
yeah.
a bit about that.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So a little light on it. It's out for conferences now, for conferences that support diversity and inclusion. So we
Mhm.
have applications open. Just a conference applies for a diversity and inclusion badge. You go through some questions, and I work as a reviewer in that team. So I try to review applications and try to see if their standards are diverse and inclusive as regards our application criteria. Then if
Mhm.
yes, they get it. But I think first stage, yeah, if I'm correct, first stage has a gold badge for diversity and inclusion, which is really very cool. And so I, with all these open source engagements I've been in, it's really very glad because like contributing to open source has brought me a whole lot of opportunities because
Mhm.
I'm not counting. I'm counting. I think 10 months into tech, and I one of my biggest achievements was like being a GitHub star, like the first female in Africa. So
That's
it was really
really
very,
exciting.
very, yeah,
Yeah.
really very good. It
S-
felt really good.
Yeah, so I was reading a bit about the program. So can you,
Yeah.
what was it like when you found out you got nominated and chosen for this?
Okay, so I'll describe it very well. So when I saw the mail, I was so happy. Like you get a mail that you're being nominated. I was like, wow. Because before then, I read about the program. I was
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, this is something I would like to be part of, and I was just like, okay, I'll get there someday. It was just a thought, right? I'll get there, and somehow I got email that I was nominated. I shared it on Twitter, and I got so many congratulations. I was like, it's not yet set. Just hold on. It's not yet
Yep.
setting, but yeah, I think after like then during the week of waiting, if it was going to be confirmed, I was so anxious, right? Like I was like,
Yeah.
I've gotten so many congratulations on Twitter. So what if I say I do actually get it? What happens?
You say it
So
was
I
an
was
honor
really
to be nominated.
so I was really, really very anxious, and fortunately, I got the mail that okay, yeah, it's been confirmed. I was like, wow, that's so nice, and I got into the program, and so far it's been really good because I think I got a pack that was like speaker equipment and microphones and
That's
all the very
awesome.
exclusive swag, and so it's so nice, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
so
And especially since you're speaking at all these conferences, kind of just the way that
yeah,
we are now. So, what
yeah.
was and I'm so happy that you're speaking and kind of letting people know about that beginner experience because I think there
Yeah.
were a lot of us who went to our first open source conference this year
Hmm.
virtually because they're all
Yeah.
either a lot less expensive or free, and we can
Hmm.
come and in our pajama bottoms and nobody knows. And but it's just been so easy to go to these. And so I think
Yeah.
having someone who is maybe, they hear you and go, "Wow, if I get
Hmm.
involved, see where she's come in this short
Yeah.
time." maybe I could do that same thing. Because, yeah, I think it just seems overwhelming. It's like, where do you get
Yeah,
started? How do I get started? And
exactly.
so, what was the first conference that you spoke at?
Okay, so I spoke at State of the Source by the
Mm
open source organization. Yeah, that was like the first conference I spoke at, and it was a lightning talk. Right, that was my
hmm.
first
Mm
conference. And before that was the first talk, and I was really very anxious. I prepared the slide, and I was like, okay, I was going to give this talk. I did a little practice with some friends and tried to get on some meet call and do like practice. Then on the day of the conference, something happened. Like I I actually, okay, I couldn't meet up with the time, right? And it
hmm.
was I actually joined the conference like a minute before my time.
Mm hmm.
It was it
Yeah,
was
we've all
so
been there
funny.
too.
Yeah, so I when I joined, I was really anxious and everything, but the thing is, one thing I've noticed is with speaking, the anxiousness never goes away. It always
Yeah.
gets, it doesn't really go away. So for people getting started, it's sometimes it can be a scare how to actually get started. But so far, um, with virtual conferences and things going remote, some open
Hmm.
source projects have been really very open and been trying to like enhance their onboarding, how to accept more people. So once you get started, there's the flow that comes with it. Like there's just this easy flow. And at first it will be very hard, but as you go ahead, there's the flow that comes with it, and you just keep going on contributing and contributing. So my first conference was really a scare, but so far, when I did a review, I was like, whoa. So I spoke at all these conferences in the year 2020. I was like, wow, that's actually really great. But yeah, so the first ones are always very scary.
Yeah, and I think that's also when kind of the imposter syndrome kicks in,
Yeah,
when you're hearing all these people who
exactly.
like they've been contributing for years and decades and you're like,
Yeah.
what am I doing here? So, yeah. And I don't know, and dealing with that is, I think, the only thing that's worked for me is to know that people who've been doing this much longer still deal with those feelings and that they're
Yeah.
irrational no matter how true they might seem. They're
Yeah.
they're probably not. So,
Mhm.
yeah. So, that is so are there any conferences what is the next one you're going to be speaking at?
Okay, so I'll be speaking at first them.
Mm,
Like
mm,
yeah, thank you.
that's
So I was looking at first
awesome.
them. Yeah, it's a lightning talk. So I'll be sharing like a 6 months review of my contributions to open source. Something like what this has been, like how it has been for me, being like getting an achievement like being a GitHub star. So it's just a very short talk on how everything has been, just like encourage others starting out or getting to contribute for the first time. So yeah, so
That
that's the
is
next one.
wow, and that is going right up to the big leagues there. So, though I am
Yeah,
as much fun as it's been to hear from friends who've gone to Boston and the just the sheer scale of it, it will be
hmm,
nice to have it all virtual. And so, A, I'll
yeah,
be able to go and hear your talk and
okay,
hear lots of other
sure,
talks and save some of them for
yeah,
later.
later,
But
yeah,
that's fantastic. Oh my gosh. So, I mean, pretty much be doing this just like less than a year out and be
yeah.
speaking at FOSSDom. That's pretty awesome. Yeah.
Thank you.
So, yeah, and it seems like you have really just found this great, like, both speaking at conferences and oh my gosh, I am so envious of your blogging discipline. So, how are you able to make blogging and kind of your outreach there. How have you been able to make that a habit, and how do you think that's helped you with kind of your open source journey?
Okay, so I actually have this series that I dedicated to writing about open source. It's called like my open source diary.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, like those articles have really helped me understand more about open source first, because I think when you're writing, you might probably think you understand this topic very well, but when you want to like scribble something down, you just lose, you feel okay, I thought I actually knew what this was about, right? So you start looking for, so I had to um, research about some key points in open source and some things to write about. So writing has actually helped me learn better, right? And reach
Mm-hmm.
other people, especially like there's some people that read the articles and be like, oh, thank you for this article, and they make their contributions and they be like, oh, this article actually helped me understand what open source is about and how to contribute. And I think there was an article I wrote also about Hacktoberfest, and I helped some others. And when they got their T-shirts, they like
Mm-hmm.
tweeted back at me and was like, "Oh, thank you, Ruth, for actually helping me out. Here's my T-shirt from Hacktoberfest," and it really made me happy because like it showed me that these efforts that I put in are not to waste, and they're
Yeah.
actually helping so many people out there. So I think those in my point of imposter syndrome, or in my point of burnout or feeling bad for myself, I think I look at those things that people have said and those lives that I have impacted. So writing for me, aside even open source, has helped me learn better and has helped me, most importantly, like reach out to others and educate them on what I'm writing about. So it's been a whole lot.
Yeah, that is really fantastic. So what have been
Yeah.
some of the other challenges that, even though you've had a lot of really great high points in your journey, what have some of the major challenges been?
Okay, so a major challenge for me has, aside the challenge of which I mentioned of my getting around some tools, some chat channels that were new to me. So a major challenge for me was data, like internet connection, because personally, I am from a I'm not from a so rich family, right? So getting started and being a female, right? So
Mm-hmm.
there's this belief in Africa, which we are trying to like get rid of, that females, for females getting into the tech space, sometimes it can be a whole lot of frustrating. So initially convincing my parents that okay, this is the path I want to take, and them supporting me was like a challenge. There were some times I had to like, you know, sacrifice some night time, right, to do some particular things. So there were so many challenges on the bottom, like getting access to some tools, some resources, getting access to internet and all those other things. So it was like a big challenge, but over time, people as the tech community on Twitter kept supporting, and there were like organizations that run support for people that are starting out in tech, for beginners, and it was really very great because I got to like benefit from all those support and everything, and it really helped me do better for myself. And
Yeah.
over time, coming up, some of those things are no longer challenges for me again. So aside the whole tool challenge, like getting around some tools like Gate and some chat channels, I think those
Mm-hmm.
were like some challenges for me coming up.
And what did you find that you had these kind of and it was great to read your posts, like kind of that was your 2020 kind of year in year in review, and you talked about kind of these things that helped you get over these challenges, like deliberacy and asking for
Yeah,
help. And I think, oh my gosh, asking for help is it's
exactly.
it seems like it should be easy, but it's not. You feel kind of
It's
like,
not.
mm-hmm. So how did,
You feel a little down. Yeah.
mm-hmm.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Oh, so I was just going to ask, how did you, which one of these things kind of, was the hardest for you to like do? Either kind of the asking for help or being deliberate or consistent.
Okay. So I think the two of like consistency and asking for help was the really very hard one. So I'll start with
Mm-hmm.
asking for help. So most of the time it could be help. It must not be necessarily financial help, right? So
Mm-hmm.
it could be help like asking questions. So sometimes when you send a message to someone on Twitter, you have to be really patient
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
sometimes, right, some people do not check. I think if the person is not following you, like if the person is not following you, it gets in their message requests. So some people do not really check message requests, and
Yeah.
it gets lost in the chat. So sometimes I had to really apply patience, right? Because I saw that initially starting out, I didn't understand the time zone difference. Like it's morning around your time, and it's almost evening here. So when
Mm-hmm.
I was asking for help, sometimes I felt bad that the other person didn't want to like respond at that time. But over time, I got to like understand time zone differences in asking for help. Try to be patient and do not like expect so much, and try to like be humble, because like you're the one at the other end, you're the other person receiving, so you should try to like ask the right questions and act strategically, right? So before I ask out the question, I should have tried like this or that, and since not
Mm-hmm.
it's not working, then I now ask like the question. Then staying consistent was, wow, it was really very hard. Like I know sometimes I can really get emotional about stuff. So there are sometimes where I cried about not meeting my target and not meeting like my goal. But
Yeah.
okay, what I did, I'll put up an example. Like when I was doing a particular program, on a mentorship program, so I said I was going to consistently write an article every week about what I learned, right? So I tried to, every week I tried to like pick out something, a particular concept I learned about, and try to write about it. But 2 weeks into it, the third week or the fourth week, I was like, I missed writing on a particular day. I said I was going to write because of some challenge, and I
Mm-hmm.
was like, oh, I missed out on my streak, and I wanted to actually not like maybe give up on that. But I remember that I said I was going to like deliver 12 articles that week. So what I now did the next week was I tried to write 2 articles next week.
Mm-hmm.
So staying consistent can really be hard, but I think what keeps you going is remembering that you have a goal to finish, and
Mm-hmm.
telling yourself, yes, I can do this, and finding friends around you that support you and tell you that you can really push through this, and go through it. So I think although it was hard, these 2 days were really hard, but because of the friends I had around me, and because of what I had set out for myself, and where I saw that I wanted to be, I kept like pushing for these things.
Yeah, and I know that this is something I've kind of, I've still trying to learn too. It's like seeing where do I want to be, but what
Yeah,
are those everyday, every week steps that I have to take to get there?
yeah,
And so because it's hard,
yeah,
because we want to be that person we want to be right now without the
yeah,
work, but there's no other way that we're going to get there. So,
exactly.
yeah, and I think that asking for help, I think finding the right group of people and
Yeah,
finding a project that has supportive, helpful people who
exactly.
welcome new people is so important too. And it sounds like
Exactly.
you've really done that. So I mean, I've done some things with the gnome community, and I got to meet, well, digitally meet Sri this summer.
Yeah,
And
Siri is
oh my
so
God, he's
awesome.
great. He's great. The adventures with his cats on Twitter is just, oh my
Yeah,
God. They're
so
so
troublesome and
I,
cute.
I know. But they just seem like an extremely welcoming community and group. And so I'm
Exactly.
yeah. And so how did you find those two groups? Kind of how did you find the communities that you wanted to be a part of?
Okay, so I'll start with the first community I found. So the first community I found was Layer 5. It's a like service merge organization.
Mhm.
So during the challenge I talked about earlier, like challenge in July to get like some pull requests done. So there's this community called She Code Africa. It's a non-governmental organization that supports women in Africa in tech.
Mhm.
So they had they have like this opportunities channel. So as regards the challenge, they were like where you can find them. They listed out like a spreadsheet of some open source communities that are looking for help, right? So I found the Layer 5 community, and I think that was the first pull request I like made, and it was about fixing the readme. So and the
Very
community is really
cool.
very welcoming because at the point service meshes are not something I know my way around, but I still found a way to actively contribute. Like you said earlier, finding a welcoming community, like
Mhm.
it's really key to contributing to any organization, depending not regardless of your stack. So layer 5 was really very welcoming to me, and as regards my little contributions in as readmes, I was able to still contribute effectively and my voice was being heard. Then secondly, the gnome community. Siri has been awesome. Trust me. Like
He's a
he
great
you like
ambassador.
yeah, exactly. So Siri helped me so much with understanding, especially with the chat channels like IRC, Mattress, because those chat channels were really new to me. I just knew Slack, Twitter, WhatsApp, and Facebook, but
Mhm.
the open source space, I have known some new chat channels, which at that point it was really very hard for me to like get my way around it. But she was always there to like explain, break these things down, even when doing a meeting. So after the whole complex stuff, she will be like, "Oh yeah, so we're actually talking about this." So he tries to like explain these things over again because he notices that might not understand this context, right? So he
Mhm.
tries to like go over these things and explain them to the level where even a beginner can, get to understand it. Then I also found like the chaos. It was I think Siri recommended me to like the chaos community where he told
Mhm.
me about the diversity and inclusion working group and something he thinks I would like really love to get involved in. So I got to that group and it was really very awesome. So these three communities are like they mean a lot to me and I hope to like keep contributing to them like more and more. But there are other stuff I do as regards open source, like volunteering in some conferences. Like I think
Mhm.
last year I volunteered with All Things Open.
I did
So aside,
too.
yeah.
Yeah, just
Oh
yeah,
wow.
that was so much fun. That was a lot
Yeah.
of fun.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like I think I hosted like the a particular, I think the business group for like 6 hours straight. I was like, I hosted and I was introducing speakers, and it was a whole lot of fun because I got to like meet
Mhm.
very key people in different organizations that I find really, really very interesting. And it was really cool. Yeah, so contributing
Yeah.
to open source for me has been so great.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good way for people to also help because these virtual events need
Yeah,
volunteers to
exactly.
run events and keep everything going. And that's
Yeah.
just, and besides the fact that you, like, I can't remember what room I ran on that
Oh,
Monday, but it was great. I just got to hang out in the
I
room and
think
hear
mine was on
great
a
talks.
Tuesday. I think
Hmm.
mine was on a Tuesday. Yeah. I
Yeah.
think I did mine the next day.
Yeah, but it was just a great chance to not only learn these really fantastic things, but get to know, sometimes these really key people. And it's just,
Yeah,
and we just absolutely need volunteers to do all of those
exactly.
things, whether it's for a big thing like FOSDEM or All Things Open, or some of the smaller conferences and fests that have moved online.
Yeah.
So. Yeah. But one thing that I think that's going to be nice, especially for those of us, you know, who just got started this year, is that
Okay.
like this was supposed to be the year, last year was supposed to be the year my husband and I, we were going to go to conferences and fest, and then that didn't happen. But now,
Okay.
since, oh, oops, getting your camera back up.
Yeah. Sorry.
That's
Yeah, I'm
okay.
getting the backup.
That is okay.
Um, okay. Yeah. So it's back.
Woohoo! Perfect. All right.
Yeah.
But yay. What was I going to say?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that but we kind of would have known a few people like from some Telegram channels, but we
Okay.
didn't know them as well. But now we're going to go to these conferences and we'll know people. And even though we'll be meeting them for the first time, we'll it will be nice to kind of have that community there, and we've already been a
Exactly.
part. So, I mean, that might not be till next year, but it's going to be a really, I think, for those of us who were able to start contributing in 2020, because just it's it's interesting to talk to some people that like for me, I left my job in August because I was
Oh,
an educator and they were trying to
okay.
make us go back, and my husband is high risk, and I'm like, it is
Yeah.
not worth the low pay that I get
Yeah.
to
Good back.
go back. And but
So
because I
important.
had that but then because I had that free time, I could do things like volunteer for All Things Open and do
Okay.
all these other projects. And I'm like, well, I'm not getting paid, but I really like this. So,
Enjoy this. Yeah.
yeah. So, and hopefully, I did see that some of your challenges were going through the demoralizing thing that is the job process. So,
Yeah.
yeah. So I hope that 2021 brings some really good luck on that front.
Yeah. I really hope so too, and I wish you like more.
Thank you. So yeah, and it's exciting to think at some conference in 2022 because especially the Nomies are so fun to hang out with. And
Yeah, I really can't wait for like an in-person conference because I think I'm tired of the virtual ones.
I know, even though like they did some really cool things, like they had a cocktail and mocktail
Yeah,
class.
exactly. Yeah, I
And
think Siri cooked on one of
oh
them
my gosh,
too.
I totally went and bought like I was like trying to buy cranberries in August, which was like really hard to undo, but it
Yeah.
was so cool. And then I hosted the tea party, and because it
Oh,
was, yeah, and it was just when I re- registered, I was just like, I will host. It's like they're like, is there an event you want to do? And I'm like, virtual tea party. And I think Molly wrote me back and she's like, tell us more
oh
about this
yeah.
tea party. And it was like we all brought tea. Some people brought out fancy hats, and it was,
Yeah.
and then it like turned into the like kind of the jam band concert.
Yeah.
And so things like that, and what was it? It was Siegel, which went
Yeah.
online, and they had,
Yeah. I think I spoke at Seagull too.
mm-hmm, and it was really great to see conferences that really try to bring
Entertain.
that in person feel.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
And so hopefully when we go back to online, but we maybe have some of them be hybrid. So if we can't
Yeah.
afford to go or it's too far, we can still kind of participate. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's been
Yeah.
fun. But one thing we
Yeah.
will
It's
be
been so.
yeah, but one thing we'll be able to do when we are in person is to be able to actually all eat together and not just
Sure.
virtual ones. So I think you should definitely
Yeah.
do something with cake for your next conference. Just saying.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So,
Sure.
as we're winding down here, oh my gosh, yes, cake. Cake is wonderful. So, when,
Awesome.
yeah, so what, and I saw, so you are into baking them, decorating them,
I
eating them?
used I used to I used to bake, but I think now I'm just into eating them and admiring them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just, it is. And it is so much. Oh my gosh, they're so much fun. Now, do you like to watch like the baking shows where they like do
Yeah.
all the.
Yeah. I can spend like watching them on YouTube, trying to see how they decorate, and looking at clips of videos of beautiful cakes. I think the first website I did, the first website I tried out when I learned HTML and CSS was like a cake website. I tried to upload some videos of cake all around and everything. You know?
That's awesome. That is
Yeah, so I think
awesome.
it makes me so happy. Like I can't actually say why it actually makes me happy, but it's
Yeah.
just so nice, especially the red velvet flavored ones. They look so beautiful, and I like
Mhm.
that tongue feel where your tongue feels so red
Oh my.
after eating
Yeah, I made red velvet because thankfully I live just outside of Atlanta, Georgia. So red velvet cake is so easy to get here. It's
them. Oh, okay.
wonderful. And there's a place that we like to go for breakfast that we can still get
Okay.
takeout from. And they do red
Okay.
velvet pancakes. And
Oh
it's like having
wow.
cake for breakfast. And so for Christmas morning, I'm like, I'm going to make red velvet pancakes. And I look at the recipe and they call for like a thing of red food coloring like that big. And I'm just like, that's a lot. And so I put it in the mix and I'm like, oh God, it looks like I murdered someone in my kitchen. But they came out so
Very
good. And we put cream cheese frosting on top. I have to find a way to make them healthier. Otherwise, they're going to be like a once a year treat. But you're right. Cakes are just they're usually I think because we have them at such happy occasions like
yeah,
birthdays
exactly.
and
Birthday.
weddings. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Celebration. Yeah, exactly.
exactly. And so like my husband just celebrated his birthday 2 days
Yeah, happy
ago.
birthday.
Yeah, and we got him like our one of our supermarkets sold little mini
Okay.
buttercream cakes. And so we got him
Okay.
one and we put a candle in it and we sang happy
That's so
birthday.
sweet.
Yeah, and then a bunch of his friends and us we sang happy birthday online and so we kind of felt bad that we couldn't share the cake with them.
Yeah.
But yeah, but it's going to be
Yeah.
nice to be able to kind of meet all these people who we know, but meet them for the first time. And
Yeah. I can't wait to meet you.
yeah, it's exactly. I know, like reading your bio, I'm like, oh, she's a tech writer. She's super into onboarding stuff, and she likes cake. I was like, yes, I'm so excited to get to talk to you
Yeah.
because I just felt like we had so much in common. So,
Yeah.
yeah, and it's just, I think that having more enthusiastic beginners who want to help other people have good experiences in open source that, that help them be a healthy contributor and not get burnout. It's just
Yeah.
that's a really good thing. So,
Exactly.
yeah. So, for people listening to this, if there's other people who are kind of new or maybe haven't gotten involved with open source yet, what advice would you give them?
Okay, so there's this quote from a friend, Samson Goddy, that he usually like talks about is focus on quality and not quantity. So like expanding on that, some persons tend to like look at how big the change would be to the organization, but I think you should look at the quality, whatever, no matter how little, even though it's fixing a readme change or
Hmm.
fixing a typo on the organization. Just focus on what quality you're bringing into that project or to that community. Don't look at how much big or how big the change is,
Yeah.
but look at the quality, what you have to offer, and make that project better. So I think you should focus on making the project better and not how much the change is. Yeah,
Yeah.
so that's like one very key advice I love to throw in. And additionally, if you want to get involved in open source, I think my DM is always like open, and I'm always happy to like give you a show around or like tell you about open source and introduce it to you personally. So I think yeah, that's one thing I
Awesome.
love to chip in. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, anyway, I've been so grateful to have you as our guest curator. You've had some wonderful conversations, and I'm so happy we got to close out your week with this amazing conversation. So,
Sure.
thank you, and I'm looking forward to chatting with you this year, maybe being at some virtual
Yeah.
conferences
Sure.
together, and then some real life ones, hopefully in 2022. So, all
Yeah,
right.
sure.
Well, Ruth,
Thank you
thank
so
you.
much.
You're so welcome. So, anyway,
Yeah.
Ruth, thank you. Have a great day, and
Yeah, sure. You too.
I will see you online soon. And everyone, thank you for
Sure.
joining us.